something, any service which is used by the supplier in the course of furtherance of business. So friends, what I have seen that even a service provider, if they receive any service, they say that, look, I have, received input. No friends, input is different from input service. Input is restricted to goods only. Input services means service. So there is a difference between goods and service. Now friends, what are the basic conditions for availment of input tax credit? If you read section 16 and all, it says that the goods or services which we have availed shall be used or intended to be used in the course or furtherance of business. If I have availed any goods or services, it has to be for my business purpose. If I'm purchasing something and if I'm using at my home, I cannot avail that credit because it is used for personal consumption. So basically, I need to ensure that whatever goods and services which we have availed, it is used in the course or furtherance of business. For availing the input tax credit, you should have some duty-paying documents. What are those duty-paying documents? It can be a tax invoice, it can be a debit note, it can be an SD invoice, it can be a bill of entry which we file at the time of import, or I can avail credit on the basis of self-invoice at the time of discharging my GST liability under reverse charge mechanism. Another important point, my friends, is for availing the input, I shall receive goods and services. Now, you will see that a lot of the time, clients are getting letters from the department where it is alleged that your credit is not admissible because you have not received goods and services. So friends, how the department will come to know that, I have not received goods and services? Because sometimes at the time of investigation, at the supplier's end, the department see that, look, the supplier is absconding. There is no whereabouts about the supplier. So if the supplier is missing, his office address, if they go to their office address, nobody is there. So what is happening is the department, what they do, they see the GST return where they have passed on the tax amount. So basically, if the supplier has sold goods to a buyer, what the department is doing is they are taking a view that, look, since the supplier is absconding, it means that you may not also have availed the goods and services. You may not have received goods and services. It is just a plain mere book entry. Basis that the clients are getting letters where the department is asking to reverse input tax credit for the simple reason that the supplier is missing, they are absconding, or they have admitted that they have not supplied goods and services to you, and it is merely a plain book entry. So basically, we need to also substantiate that we have actually received goods and services. Return has been filed by the person claiming the credit. If I have to claim the credit, I am maintaining a SENVIT register, input tax credit register. It is a statutory document. At the same time, friend, I have to file the returns. If the amount I have taken in my return register, but for availing the credit, my filing of return is also very important. So those credits I need to reflect in my GSTR 3B. If you don't reflect that credit in your GSTR 3B, credit would not be admissible. Another important point, my friends, are basically the tax. So basically, when you are purchasing a goods, the supplier has charged tax on the supplies which are made to you. Now, the tax amount which you pay to the supplier need to ensure that tax is deposited to the government. What in case if the supplier don't pay the tax? The department, they are raising notices and they are asking that since the supplier have not paid the tax to the government, you are not allowed to take the credit. So all these disputed points, friends, I will discuss at the end of this basic topic. So this is one of the most important points, friends, where we need to ensure that the person from whom we are purchasing the goods or services is a regular taxpayer and he is paying tax to the government exchequer. In case he is not paying tax to the government, the credit which I have taken in my return will be disallowed. The department will issue a notice and they will say for reversal. Whether we are allowed to take the credit or not, it is from the law point, no. Unless and until the supplier has not paid the tax to the government within a statutory time limit, you cannot take the credit. However, there are various judicial pronouncements where the courts have taken a consistent view that unless and until the supplier and buyer have colluded in a manner with an intention to evade duty, credit could not be denied in the hands of the buyer. So those things will cover at the end. But this is one of the important point where the supplier must have paid tax to the government. In case of goods are received in lots or installment, credit is admissible on receipt of last lot. So friends, let's say if I have ordered for maybe 10 metric ton and the goods I have received is up to 8 metric ton. If you go as per the law, then my entire credit would be admissible only when I receive the last lot. This is creating a lot of hardship in the hands of the buyers. Now assume a situation, I have imported some goods from outside India and I have kept it at a warehouse near the port only. And I brought in all those materials as and when required. Friends, unless and until I use the entire lot, I will not be allowed to take the credit. So in my view, this law needs to be amended and proportionate credit should be given to the buyers which were there under the erstwhile law. Under the erstwhile law, I could have taken proportionate credit, but under the GST law, that is not there. So this law needs to be amended. Last and important point is, friends, the value of goods and services, which we have the value of goods and services and tax. So if I am purchasing something on which tax has been charged, then I need to pay that value of goods along with tax charge thereon to the supplier within 180 days. If I don't pay tax within 180 days, then the credit which I have taken initially needs to be reversed. However, once we make payment to the supplier, the credit can be retaken. Recredit is admissible. Initially, if I have reversed the credit on account of non-payment of tax, then I can reclaim the credit once I make payment to the supplier. These are some other important points, friends, that credit is admissible proportionately to the extent related to business. So basically, if there is a credit which is used both for my business purpose and non-business purpose, I cannot take the entire credit. I can take credit proportionately to the extent it is related to my business. And then there is a formula which is prescribed under Rule 42 and 43 as to how to compute, proportionate credit which is attributable to business. Similarly, credit is admissible to the extent related to my taxable supplies, including zero-rated supplies. What is zero-rated supply, friends? Zero-rated supply is a supply, basically something which is exported, the export of goods or services or supplies made to SEZ qualify as zero-rated supplies. So although I may not be paying tax on the export, however, I am allowed to take the credit. Another important point is, friends, we receive the invoices of the supplier. However, some of the details are not correctly given in the invoice. So what is the issue, friends? If the department of visit your premise, client assessee premise, they say that, look, the duty paying document, all the details required under the duty paying document is not there. So I will not allow you to credit. So what we suggest is basically some of the important details about the tax amount, the description of goods and services, the total value, GSTN and place of supply should be there. So there are around 16 to 17 requirements in case of a tax invoice. However, at least 6 to 7 checks are very important. We should ensure that each and every details are correctly mentioned in the tax invoice. One may contend that, look, if the credit is reflected in my GST at 2A, why should I reverse the credit? That is fine point. What in case if the department says that, look, as per the law, all these details should be there. So unnecessary, all these things will lead to litigation. So what I'm suggesting, friend, is to avoid litigation, we need to ensure that at least these things should be there in my invoice. Further, the last point, friends, is for the particular year, for the current financial year, the last date for availing the credit is the date of filing of return for the month of September or the date of filing of annual return, whichever is earlier. So thereby meaning that today for the current financial year, it is not that I can take credit after 5 years. There is a statutory time limit within which I should take the credit. One way of doing the transaction is if there is a mismatch, I will take the credit and reverse. So the current restriction of availing the credit will not be applicable to me. However, the law is silent whether recredit can be taken at any time. Under the erstwhile law, recredit was permissible. So same view we are taking even under the GST law. However, the same is bound to be litigated by the department. So these are some of the inadmissible credit, friends, where motor vehicle, let's say if I have availed a motor vehicle, if I have purchased a motor vehicle, so whether credit would be admissible unless until this motor vehicle is used to make further supply of motor vehicle, or it is used for training purpose, or for imparting, driving and all, for driving related purpose and all, credit would not be admissible. Similarly, is the case with vessels and aircraft. If I have purchased any vessels and aircraft, then credit would not be admissible unless and until these vessels and aircraft are used for transportation purpose, or for transport, or for training purpose, or for passenger transport. Similarly, in case of general insurance or repair and maintenance in relation to the motor vehicles or vehicle or vessels and aircraft, credit would not be admissible unless these are used for taxable output purpose. So today, let's say a company purchases a car. So whether they can avail the credit? No, they cannot avail the credit. However, if somebody has purchased a truck which is used for transportation work, whether credit is admissible? Yes, there is no restriction for availing the credit. Another inadmissible credit is, friends, food and beverages, outdoor catering, beauty treatment, health services, plastic surgery, life insurance, health insurance. Unless these are used for providing similar output service, further membership of club and health and fitness services are not allowed. Travel benefits given to employees are not allowed. However, there is an exception to this. Whenever these benefits are given to the employees statutorily, in that event, we can say that it is used in relation to furtherance of business and commerce, and therefore credit should be admissible. So the law itself provides that when there is an obligation on the employer to provide same service, to provide these services to the employee under any of the law, then credit would be admissible. What all cases, friends, input tax credit is not admissible in case of composition scheme. If I have purchased goods from a composition dealer, I am not allowed to take the credit. Personal consumption, I purchase a goods which is used at my home. So let's say if I purchase a AC, whether credit would be admissible? Yes, credit would be admissible only when it is used at my office, not at my home. If I am availing credit in relation to an AC which is set at my home, I will not be allowed to take credit because on account of specific restriction. Credit would not be admissible in case where the goods are lost, stolen, destroyed, or written off, or disposed of by way of gift or free sample. If I have lost a goods, I purchased a goods, but because somehow I lost it, credit would not be admissible. If the goods which I have purchased get stolen or gets destroyed or gets written off by me, credit would not be admissible. If I purchase a good, but out of my love and affection, I gift it to somebody else, credit would not be admissible. If I give free samples, credit would not be admissible. What about process loss, friends? That we have discussed about in my subsequent slides. Credit would also not be admissible where you get a letter from the department saying that you have taken inadmissible credit, which I subsequently reverse. So if you have reversed the credit, or if you make the payment after getting a letter from the department, then you will not be allowed to take the credit. So basically, if you made payment after recovery notice, then that credit would not be admissible. So hypothetically, let's say I have not paid reverse charge, tax under reverse charge. The department comes and say that, look, you have not paid tax under reverse charge, and I make payment of 1 lakh rupees along with interest of 20,000 and penalty of 15,000. The question is whether I can take the credit of 1 lakh. No, friends, you cannot take the credit on account of this restriction. Another case where I cannot take the credit is works contract in relation to construction of an immovable property. If I'm availing services with respect to civil work, then credit would not be admissible. However, where such services are used for construction and setting up a plant and machinery, credit would be allowed. Similarly, if I am availing a works contract services for providing a further works contract, then credit would be admissible. So the restriction is basically those works contract services which is used in relation to construction of an immovable property. So what is important is, if I am availing a works contract, it has to be used in relation to construction of immovable property. If there is no immovable property, this restriction will not be applicable. Another point is, friends, where we cannot take the credit is in relation to, construction of any goods and services which I am availing, which is used for construction of an immovable property, even though when it is used in the course of furtherance of business. So friends, on this we have already We have covered this in our latest slide. So this is basically if I have availed any kind of goods and services. The earlier point was with respect to works contract services. The other exclusion is if I avail goods and services in relation to construction of an immovable property, although that immovable property may be used for further supply of goods and services, because I would be paying tax on my output, even though that credit would not be admissible. So on account of this section, on account of this provision, friends, although this provision has been challenged before the before the Odisha High Court, where the Odisha High Court has taken a favorable view and has allowed the credit. That we'll discuss in our later slide. So friends, what are the common mistakes which we make? So friends, what are the common mistakes which we make? You know, while filing our returns, what we need to ensure is we give proper disclosure of each and every kind of credit in my return. I should give due care while filing my GST returns. I need to give complete disclosure pertaining to availment and reversal. What we do, friends, I have seen a lot of people only disclosing about the availment of credit. They don't disclose the reversal of input tax credit. Now, friends, let's say hypothetically, if I have reversed in my register, but if I don't disclose it in my return, how will the department know that you have made any kind of reversal? Let's say an assessee, he is engaged in both taxable and exempted supplies. What he is doing is he is availing credit only to the tune of his taxable supplies. With respect to exempt supplies, he is not at all availing the credit. At the time of assessment, the department will come and say that, look, you have not reversed the credit. The assessee will contend that, look, I have already reversed the credit. The department will ask where you have reversed the credit. I need to show my Senate register, input tax register, where I will say that this is my working. And since I have availed credit only to the extent admissible, I was not supposed to reverse the credit. So friends, I am suggesting that at least from my side, we should avoid litigation. We should take the entire credit, and separately, we should also disclose the reversal. If we don't show the reversal, the department will not agree with our view, and unnecessary, it will bound to be litigated by the department, and we need to go and make appearance, and we need to go and file appeal before the appellate authority and all. To avoid such circumstances, it is suggested that we should disclose, we should make proper disclosure with respect to availment of credit. Separately, we should also disclose about reversal in our returns. Further, friends, I have seen a lot of people making mistakes that, instead of CGST credit, they have reflected in IGST, or IGST credit, they have reflected in CGST. So now, friend, what is happening is, although it is a tax neutral situation in the hands of both assessee as well as the department and government, however, the department will unnecessarily issue a notice saying that you have excess avail credit. Although it is an entirely tax neutral situation, but on account of some inadvertent mistakes, what I did, I have taken excess IGST credit and I have taken less CGST credit. So in case of, in such cases, friends, it is suggested that immediately we should reverse the credit along with interest, and we shall take the differential credit, which I have not taken in the earlier months. And all this adjustment needs to be incorporated in my returns. It shall not be restricted to my register only, input tax register. It shall be considered in my returns. It may, if I have inadvertently taken excess credit in IGST instead of CGST or vice versa, it can also be a reason for my delay in getting the refund, or it can also lead to rejection of refund. So friends, although there is entirely, it is a revenue neutral situation, there is no loss to the government exchequer, but on account of some mistakes which I have made inadvertently, there is a litigation which will involve both time and cost. So it is suggested, friends, that whenever we are filing the returns, we should ensure that CGST credit shall be reflected under CGST, SGST shall be reflected under SGST, and similarly IGST credit should be reflected under IGST. We should avoid such mistakes which may unnecessary, invite litigation from the department. So this point, as I have already discussed, friends, rules 46. A tax invoice requires several details about the name of the supplier, name of the receiver, tax charge, value of supplies, whether tax is payable under reverse charge, uh, serial number. So there are a lot of details which needs to be there under the tax invoice. Practically, it is very difficult to check each and everything. The GST law prescribes that even if the tax invoice doesn't contain all the details, credit would be admissible subject to correctness of these 6 details. The details of the amount of tax charge, the description of goods and services, total value of supply, GSTN of the supplier and recipient, GSTN of the supplier and the recipient, and place of supply in case of interstate supply. So what is suggested, friend, is basically whenever we are getting the tax invoice, we should ensure that at least the 7-8 details are there over the invoice, and these things should be and at least we should check all these details. Otherwise, at the time of assessment, the department authorities, if they see all these kind of mistakes, they will unnecessary dispute is they will unnecessary create problem and will dispute availment of credit. Another important point is, friends, input suspense account. So here what we are trying to tell here is, friends, I have seen a lot of people, what they do, they directly take the credit or they directly charge off it to the P&L account. Now tell me one thing, friends, if the accountant of the company, he is not aware or he is taking credit based on his knowledge, what control is there? If I directly charge off if I am the accountant of the company, I have a feeling that credit is not admissible on this item. So what I do, I directly charge it off in my P&L account. But friends, as per the view of the consultant, that credit was admissible. So how you will ensure that we don't miss out some credit which is otherwise eligible to me but has been charged off to my P&L account? So to ensure to have a proper control, let's say another point is we should make payment within 180 days. So how we are ensuring that payment is made to the supplier within 180 days? So for covering all this situation, friends, what we are suggesting is all the credit, admissible or inadmissible, has to be routed through a suspense account. A suspense account where every month correctness of credit would be checked, whether the credit is admissible or not, whether I have complied within the basic, within the 4 corners of law, whether I have made payment to the supplier, whether credit is admissible or inadmissible. So basis that, friends, whatever credit is admissible, I will then transfer it from input suspense account to my input account. Similarly, those credit which is not admissible, I will expense it off in my P&L account. But there should be a control, friends. I will just share a fact, friends. I was doing a review for one of my clients where, I asked a general query with my client that whether you are taking this credit of HO and all. So I was told yes. So I told him, just give me some sample documents. Friends, believe me, the client was not taking credit from last 3 years. And the amount of credit was roughly approx 5 crores. So what we are suggesting is there is every possibility that an eligible credit may be expensed off in your P&L account. So it is suggested that we should, whatever credit, whether admissible or inadmissible, shall be routed through a suspense account, and at the end of every month, if it is eligible, we should route it to we should take it to our input receivable account, and if credit is not admissible, then we should expense it off. And further, friends, all this eligible and non-eligible credit, whether it is eligible or ineligible, needs to be disclosed in my GSTR 3B return. Don't restrict yourself only to the extent of disclosing eligible credit. We also need to disclose ineligible credit to our return, to GSTR 3B return. Further, my friends, I can tell you, I have seen a lot of people, making mistakes that with respect to reverse charge, they are not, you know, raising a self invoice, and they are not also issuing a payment voucher. In case of services which attract reverse charge, it can be a GTA, it can be a legal service, it can be a services from arbitrary tribunal. So those services which attracts reverse charge, means we can avail the credit subject to payment of tax, but credit availing document will be a self invoice. Credit availing document is not the payment challan. Credit availing document is a self invoice which we need to issue in accordance with rule section 16(2)(a), read with rule 36(1)(b). So in case if you are paying tax under reverse charge, kindly issue a self invoice as per section 31(3)(f), and I can take the credit subject to payment of tax. So friends, these are some of the internal controls and checks. And friends, why we are saying this is just to avoid litigation with the department. I would like to tell you one thing, friends, that ITC is basically a substantiative benefit and it cannot be denied on account of procedural lapses. The courts in a plethora of decisions, they have taken a consistent view that on account of procedural lapses, a substantiative benefit cannot be denied. So I am not telling friends that if there is a dispute, we need to make the payment. What we are trying to tell here is basically we should take some steps to ensure that there is no litigation. We suggest to avoid futile litigation with the department because the entire process will be time taking. It involves legal cost. There is unnecessary harassment, cumbersome process. To avoid all this, friends, we suggest that we should avoid futile litigation with the department. More so when we need to, do some simple checks and controls here and there. Some simple checks and controls here and there, we could avoid a lot of litigation. So what we are suggesting is to have some kind of internal control and check at our end so that there is no litigation with the department. Friends, what I am suggesting here is screening of vendors. Why screening of vendors? Now, today, as I have earlier discussed, that credit is admissible subject to supplier making the payment to the government. Now, friends, tell me one thing. Today, I have purchased some goods from a vendor who is not known to me. What will happen if he doesn't disclose it in his return? I have availed the credit. He doesn't disclose. The department will come and ask me for reversal. All these things will lead to unnecessary litigation. So what we suggest that look, if I am entering into a transaction with any kind of vendors, we should know about the vendors, whether it is a new vendor, whether it is an existing vendor, what is the status of its return filing. Today I can go and in my GST portal, I can go and give his number. Basis that I can check till what extent he has, till what time limit he has filed the return. If he is not filing returns in a timely manner, that means that he is not adhering or is not complying with the GST law. Second is whether it is a new relationship or an existing relationship. If there is an existing relationship, even then there is a delay, I should call the supplier and I shall ask him that why there is a delay. If there is a delay, there will be a cash flow implication. I will not be allowed to take the credit, or the credit which will be allowed to me will be after some time basis which there will be there can be a working capital crunch. If there is a new relationship, then I should not give a big contract because I don't know about the vendors and all. Even otherwise, monthly or quarterly kind of review, we can see that these are the vendors who are not filing timely returns. So we shall take a call that whether we should further carry business with this kind of vendors who are not filing timely returns, because each and everything, friends, it involves cost, it involves time. So if I'm interacting with any of the vendors, I should know about him and whether entering into any kind of transaction with him will have impact, financial impact on account of tax. On account of tax, friends. then what we are suggesting is credit aging report. As I have already discussed, friend, that we need to make payment within 180 days. If I don't make the payment, then I need to reverse the credit which I've initially availed along with interest. So I need to ensure that all these payments are made to the vendors within 180 days. So what is my aging report? What is my time within which I'm making payment to the creditors? If it is within 120 days, nothing to worry. Within 150 days, something to worry about. So there we need to be more concerned because there is a tax component, there is a cost. The moment I exceed 180 days, friends, I would be required to reverse the credit. So I need to also make a credit aging report that to what level we are making, to what extent we are making payment to the supplier. Third point, we have already discussed, friends, that every input tax credit should be routed through suspense account. Invoice checking, which we have already discussed, friends, that invoice checking also, we should ensure that the basic requirements of input tax credit is there over the invoice. If it is not there, it is bound to be litigated by the department. And verification for delay availment of input tax credit. So friends, this is also a very important point. I have seen a lot of people, taking credit in the particular month, but the invoice details pertains to 3 months earlier period. Now assume a situation, friend, an invoice for the month of April, I am taking credit in the month of July, and I don't have the reason why. So 3 months there is a gap for availing the credit. This 3 months I could have taken the credit in the month of April, but I don't know, for some reason or the other, I'm availing credit in the month of July. So there is a delay by 3 months. Definitely this 3 months will have working capital issue. It's not like it may be applicable to some SSs, it may not be applicable to other SSs. But I am saying that at least we should check why there is a delay in availment of credit. What is the reason for which I have availed credit after 3 months or 4 months? Is there a case that the accountant of the company, he is not taking the credit within a agreed time frame? Or is the case that I am missing the invoice? Or is there any other time issue? Or is there any other issues because of which there is a delay in availing the credit? So friends, delay in availing the credit will have working capital issue. Although it may not have a tax impact, but still it has a working capital issue. So it is suggested that each and every time we should know that why. Let's say today if I am filing the return for the month of, let's say, June, if there is an invoice which pertains for the month of December, then I should ask why there is a delay. And then we should try to avoid this kind of delay. Is this point clear to everyone? Am I audible, Prakash ji? Hello? Hello? Rahul ji, am I audible?
Ajay ji, you are audible completely.
No, because I was asking this question whether this point is clear to everyone.
Yeah.
Oh. So friends, moving forward, we are discussing about the disputes, some of the burning issues which are there under the GST law. And believe me, because of all these issues and all, every day, every week, you'll be getting letters from the department. If not today, maybe tomorrow. If not tomorrow, maybe 6 months down the line. Mismatch, denial of credit. So friends, there is a mismatch of credit. Everybody asks, why should I be penalized on account of default by the supplier? Whether, the demand is sustainable or not. So as I have already discussed, friends, that ITC is allowed subject to the fact that the supplier reflect the details in his GSTR returns and also pay tax on the supplies which have been made to the buyer. If you see the current provision, it says, the law says credit is admissible subject to the fact supplier disclosing the supplies in the GSTR return and also paying tax on the supplies. Another rule is Rule 36(4), which prescribes the limitation to what extent I can avail the credit. It says unmatched ITC shall not exceed 5% of the eligible and matched ITC. So in case my matched ITC is eligible, I'm also saying eligible, friends. Let's say you have availed rent a cab service, it is an ineligible credit, so you cannot count this ineligible credit. We are only talking about eligible credit which is reflected under GSTR 2A. If the eligible credit is 100 rupees, then you can take credit, unmatched credit to the extent of 5 rupees. Earlier, there was a restriction of 20%. To the extent of 20% of the unmatched credit, I could have availed the credit, which got reduced to 10%, and subsequently it got reduced to 5%. And I have a feeling, friend, that in future it will be, you can avail credit only to the extent reflected in GSTR 2A. So friends, the rule says my unmatched credit should not exceed 5% of the eligible and matched credit. So what we do basically, we download GSTR 2 and 2B, we see what kind of credits are reflected in my return, basis which we avail the credit. This is the law, my friends. This is the law. So one way of looking into the transaction is I match my credit and I take credit only to the extent reflected in my return. The another point is, friends, if I don't believe in this, if there is a delay by the supplier and I am having a huge cash flow implication and I don't want to reverse the credit, what is the recourse available to me? So those things we will discuss. Friends, before that, the law has been amended. Although it is not operational, Section 16(2)AA has been inserted, although it is not operational, which says that the details of invoice or the debit note referred to in clause A has been furnished by the supplier in the statement of outward supplies, and such outward supplies and such details have been communicated to the recipient of such invoice or debit note in the manner specified under Section 37. Friend, this provision was not there. So a lot of people was challenging that look, GSTR 2A, the amount which gets reflected under GSTR 2A, basis that credit would be admissible to me is not there under the CGST Act, or as a matter of fact under SGST Act. If there is anything, it is under the rules. To overcome such situation, friends, the government has inserted this provision under Section 16(2)AA, and it is yet to be notified. Similarly, friend, a new section, a proposed section, Section 43A of the CGST Act has been inserted. Section 43(4) says the procedure of availing input tax credit in respect of outward supplies not furnished under subsection 3 shall be such as may be prescribed, and such procedure may include the maximum amount of input tax credit which can so avail not exceeding 20% of the input tax credit available on the basis of details furnished by the supplier under the side subsection. So this is nothing but a kind of replica of Rule 36(4), friends. What the SSC were contending before the honorable courts was that rule cannot override the provisions of the Act. Rules cannot override the provisions of the Act. So there were restrictions under the rule, but the Act was silent. To overcome such situation, these two provisions have been inserted under the CGST Act, although both of them are not operational. It may be notified tomorrow, it may be notified 6 months down the line. But these provisions are there so that assessees in future cannot go and argue before the court that rules are overriding the provisions of the Act. So now this power has been given in the Act itself. So that contention which was available to the assessee earlier will no more be there. Now what is happening, friends? In case of unreconciled ITC, notices are being issued by the department. Now, friends, assessees are getting the notices where, the department is asking for reversal of input tax credit. Why? Because the dealer, because the supplier, they have not reflected in their GSTR returns. The question is, friends, is the demand sustainable? Can the department ask for credit? Can the department ask for reversal of credit which is otherwise admissible to me? Can I be penalized for the credit which is a vested right, which is a vested and substantial right for me? The question is, friends, to my mind, the demand is not sustainable. Why, friend, the demand is not sustainable? Because, friends, I have a view that unless the supplier and buyer have colluded in a manner with an intention to evade duty, the demand would not be sustainable. Why, friends? Because for me, it is practically impossible to check, go and verify each and every supplier. I have taken all precautions before availing the credit. I have complied with all the conditions which are prescribed under Section 16, except to the extent that the supplier have, not made the payment. The department has all the right to go and recover the money from the supplier of goods. The only problem here, friends, are basically the initial burden to discharge. The initial burden is on me or the assessee to prove that he has ensured or he has complied with the, the burden to discharge proof initially is on the assessee. So he has to show that he has taken all precautions before availing the credit. If that burden can be discharged, can be proved before the court, then credit would be admissible. Friends, there is another problem. Now let's say the supplier, he's absconding. Nobody knows about the whereabouts about the supplier. The address of the supplier, which has been given in the registration certificate, talks about a 4x6 room, which has no presence about the supplier. In fact, the supplier cannot be there. Or let's say another situation where the supplier gives in writing that he has only, passed on the credit. It is merely a book entry. There is no actual supply of goods or services. In such situation, friend, in my view, demand can be raised by the department and it will also be get confirmed. So what is the thin line of difference? I need to discharge the initial burden that whatever I did was within the four corners of law. Supplier is there. You can go and recover the money from the supplier. And I have not colluded with the supplier with an intention to evade duty. If that is the case, friends, you can avail the credit. However, the department will initially not agree with your view and you have to litigate the matter before the higher forum. I have a feeling, friends, that if somebody goes and file a writ petition before the High Court, the demand would get dropped and it would get quashed. And friends, we can place reliance upon, whatever I'm saying, find support from this, some of the decisions of, let's say, Delhi High Court decision in case of Aries India Limited, which has also been affirmed by Supreme Court in the case of CTT versus Aries India. There is another decision of Haryana High Court, friends, in the case of Gherulal Balchand versus State of Haryana. And the recent decision of DY Bithal versus STO, where the Madras High Court have taken a view, where the assessee have contended that, the department has all the right to go and recover the money from the supplier of goods, and the department, they have not taken any steps to recover that money from the supplier. So what the courts have ordered, the courts have said that, look, the department shall take steps to recover the money from the supplier, and it's a valid point. And the reliance was also placed upon the decision of Aries India and Gherulal and all. So basis all these decision, friends, we have a very, good case in case if we get a letter from the department for recovery of the disputed credit. So basically the credit which has not been, disclosed in the returns, and as, basis which the assessees or basis which the buyers are getting demand notices from the department. So this is a very important point, friends. I hope if, everybody is clear on this point. Now, if someone is not comfortable on this point, I would request he can ask me now. Okay. So moving to the next slide, friends. See, we have discussed that if I have discharged the initial burden, if the initial burden has been discharged by the buyer, I can avail the credit. But what in case if somebody don't want to dispute? If somebody don't want to dispute, what will be the way forward? So to avoid litigation, what we are suggesting, friend, is we shall run a report every month and see the name of the supplier who are filing returns. If there is a delay, if I see that these are the name of the suppliers who have not filed the return, we should start communicating to them that please file timely return. Second is, friends, the PO which has been raised, that can say that look, I will make payment of GST amount only once you file the return. And it is happening with a lot of the companies, friends, where at the time of raising work orders or POs, it has been specifically stated that I will pay the value of supply. It may be on account of goods or services. I will pay the value of goods and services, but tax I will only pay when you reflect the same in GST at 2A. If you don't reflect, I'm not going to pay the tax amount. Some parties, what they are doing is they are saying that look, if there is a delay in filing of return, basis which if I have to incur any financial cost, that financial cost I will recur from you. That is also very much possible, friends. And these are commercial things, friends. I am just suggesting some possible options which can be explored. I can also say that if I have to incur some expense, if I have to incur some cost, a financial cost on account of delay in filing of return by the supplier, then I can recover that amount from the supplier. Alternatively, the PO may be the PO at the time of raising a PO or work order. I can say that I will pay GST only once you file the returns and it is reflected in GST at 2A and subject to filing of GST at 2B. Another possibility is, friend, although some people agree, some people don't agree. What we suggest is avail ITC to the extent reflected in GST at 2A. Make rigorous follow-up with the supplier and ask them to file timely return for simplification of ITC working. And if the supplier is someone who is making delay every now and then, avoid having any kind of transaction with that supplier, because for your accounts team, for the consultants and all, it is practically impossible to go and run after each and every supplier. So we should be knowing about the supplier, what kind of supplier, basically how this supplier is, whether that supplier is law compliant or not, whether he is filing timely return or not. So those things we should check. So if we do this, friends, I won't say each and everything, but to a certain extent, friends, we can avoid or we can mitigate the risk dispute with the department. Another point is, friend, recredit of input tax credit. As I have told earlier, friends, the time limit for availing input tax credit on invoices or debit note for the current financial year is next month, the date of filing of return for the month of September, or the date of filing of annual return, whichever is earlier. I may be required to reverse ITC on account of several reasons. What can be those reasons, friends? One is I have not made payment to the supplier within 180 days. So what happens in case of non-payment of consideration to the supplier? I'm supposed to reverse the input tax credit. Once I make that payment to the supplier, I can re-avail the credit, and that re-availment of credit has been prescribed under Rule 37. But friends, there can be other situation also. I may make reversal on account of mismatch of input tax credit. I have some doubts whether credit is admissible or not admissible. On account of that doubt, I initially take the credit, but subsequently I reverse that. 2 months down the line, 6 months down the line, 1 year down the line, I've come to know that look, that credit which I have reversed earlier was admissible to me. Now, friends, what can be done? GST law is silent on this aspect, friends. Whether re-availment of credit is possible, except for non-payment of consideration wala issue, where Rule 37 provide that you can re-avail the credit. With respect to other things, the GST law is silent. Whether re-availment of ITC can be done or not. In our view, friends, re-availment of credit is possible, subject to other statutory compliance. Let's say if you are re-availing the credit, it should not be a block credit under Section 17(5), or there cannot be any other reason. So subject to other statutory compliance, friends, recredit is admissible. However, Friends, the department may not agree on this point. The department may say that, look, the law is silent on this, so I will not give you the benefit. So what we need to do, friends? I need to contend that ITC is a vested right and a substantiative benefit which has been accrued to me, and it cannot be denied on account of procedural lapse, if any. There may not be any procedural lapse, but there can be, if there is any procedural lapse also. ITC is a substantiative benefit and it could not be denied. Further, there is no loss to the government exchequer. If I am availing the credit, I pay tax to the supplier and that tax has been paid to the government. So where is the loss to the government exchequer? So there is no loss to the government exchequer also. So basis that, friends, I can always say that I can re-avail the credit. However, it is bound to be litigated under the erstwhile law, friends. While when we talk about the excise law, the service tax law, those recredit, the court have taken a lenient view where they were allowing the recredit of input tax credit. However, under the GST law, the law is silent on this aspect. What we are of the view that recredit is permissible. It is also suggested, friend, that if we are re-availing the credit, we should give we should make such disclosure to the department so that at a later date, the department should not come and say alleged suppression with an intention to evade duty. So in case if we are re-availing the credit, we should intimate to the department, and the department may and may not agree initially. So we need to litigate in such matter, friends. One need to also see the cost benefit in such cases. This is another point, friends. Block credit ITC on goods lost. If you see section 17.5, friends, it says ITC is not admissible in case goods are lost. So, friends, I'll give you the. I will explain this by way of an example. I'm a manufacturer. And I have, let's say, ordered 100 metric ton of cement. So, friends, when I have procured the goods at the time of, and let's say the goods is X factory, I have purchased X factory. So I have, sent my vehicle, and at the time of, at the time of dispatch of goods from the supplier's factory, 100 metric ton of cement was there. But at the time of loading and unloading, or maybe there may be some loss on account of handling and during transportation and all, there was some loss. And again, when the goods have reached my factory, there was another some loss to a minimal extent, let's say 0.2% or 0.5%. So friends, I have purchased goods for 100 metric ton, but when I unloaded the goods and I used in my manufacturing process, the amount of goods which went into the manufacturing process was, let's say, 99.5 or 99.7. So to what extent I can avail the credit? There are two divergent views on this point. People are of the view that there is a restriction, and therefore we should avail credit only to the extent of 99.5 or 99.7, which has gone into my manufacturing process. There is another school of, there is another thought which says that, look, I should be allowed credit only to the extent of 100, not 97.5 or 99.5 something. So friends, what we are saying is there is a distinction between loss of goods vis-a-vis goods loss. The restriction under section 17.5 would be limited to cases where there is an abnormal loss. Those loss which could have been avoided, something which could have been avoided, something which is beyond my control, something which is inevitable, credit should not be denied. Something which I can avoid, credit should be denied. So if during transportation, if goods are coming, there is a handling loss, there may be some other losses also. Within the accepted industry standards, credit should not be denied. However, if there is any loss, let's say loss by fire, this could have been avoided. So credit in my mind would not be admissible. However, let's say there is a theft. There was 100 metric ton, somebody came, and there was a theft of 10 metric ton. So to the extent of 10 metric ton, in my view, credit would not be admissible. But assume a situation that where I procured something and during in-transit movement, there was some handling loss and I have received only goods to the extent of 99% or 99.5%, then these losses are inevitable. These are accepted industry standards. These losses are within the accepted industry standards. So I should not be denied credit of all these losses and all. So something which is a normal loss, which is inevitable, credit should not be denied. Something which is an abnormal loss, which could have been avoided, credit can be denied. In this case, friends, although the GST law is silent, however, one can place reliance upon the decision of the larger bench of tribunal reported in case of Bhubalka Steel. This is a very good case, friends, where where the tribunal have discussed in details as to what shall be allowed and what shall not be allowed. Even if you see the Senate credit rules, the law rule 3.1 of the Senate credit rules, it says that a manufacturer of a final product or a provider of output service shall be allowed to take credit of input received and used in relation to manufacturing process. So there also, friends, the issue was, if there is a normal loss, can we say the goods have been received? The tribunal have taken a view that those losses which are inevitable and cannot be avoided, credit could not be denied. So basis that, friends, we are saying that the rationale of that decision will also be applicable even under the GST law. And therefore, the credit should not be denied in our hand. However, friends, as I am telling you each and again time, the department authorities, they will come and they will not agree on your point that, look, section 17.5 says goods lost. So that means since you have lost, you have not received the entire goods, I will not allow you credit to the extent you have, lost the goods. So in my friends, in my view, we should litigate on such matter, and then definitely we have a very strong case. However, one also need to, check the cost benefit on this. Let's say the cost impact is, let's say the credit is 50,000 rupees. And if you go and fight the matter, you may be, you may incur more cost than that. So it will not make sense. If there is a substantial amount which is at stake, one should definitely challenge this provision, and hopefully we are going to get relief before the appellate forums and all. So another important point is, friends, ITC on CSR expenses. So I am incurring some expenses on CSR activities. So whether credit would be admissible or not. So friends, as you may be aware that, the GST law is silent on CSR activities. One need to, undertake all the CSR activities on account of, the mandate given under the Companies Act. So point, friends, question here is, if I am incurring some expenses which I am statutorily required to, whether credit would be admissible or not. To my mind, friend, definitely credit should be admissible because these expenses are, incurred statutorily. However, friends, one need to ensure that whatever expenses we are incurring, it should not fall under the block credit 17.5. So when I'm telling about 17.5, it talks about gift. So can I say that whatever expenses I have incurred under as a CSR activity can be equated with gift? Definitely not, friend. It cannot be equated with gift. So therefore, section 17.5 per se will not be applicable. That broad the restriction which is under their section 17.5 would not be applicable in my case. However, again, friends, if you see the current provisions, it is silent on this, and then there are, conflicting decisions of the appellate authority, advanced ruling authorities. In case of Dwarikesh Sugars Industries Limited, the appellate authority has allowed the credit. They have said that CSR activities is statutorily required and used in relation to furtherance of business, and therefore credit would be admissible. However, in case of Polycabs Wires Private Limited, the advanced ruling authority, they have taken a view that it is a gift. Although with due respect, I do not agree with the decision of the advanced ruling authority in case of Polycab Wires Private Limited. However, although I do not agree, friends, but that decision has been taken. Even otherwise, friends, the decision of the advanced ruling authority, it is binding on the applicant. and not on other assets. However, it still has a persuasive value. The GST law is silent on this point, friends. Coming to the erstwhile law, friends, in case of SL PropCap Limited, Propac Limited, the tribunal has taken a favorable view where they have allowed the credit, on the premise that it is statutorily required and therefore credit should not be denied. And friends, as I told you, each and every time I say that it is subject to, dispute from the department. So definitely, if we are availing the credit on CSR activities, it is advised that we should communicate this to the department so that the department cannot allege there was any suppression. And initially the department may be reluctant to allow you the credit, and therefore there will be a dispute and we need to litigate the matter before the higher forum. And in all likelihoods, friends, we may get a positive, a favorable decision from the appellate forum. Another important issue is, friends, if you will see that, you will observe that currently lot of the assessors, they are getting letters from the department where the department is asking for reversal of input tax credit on the premise of post facto cancellation of registration of the supplier retrospectively. So friends, I have availed the goods from a supplier, and this after 2 years down the line from the date of my purchase, the supplier registration has been cancelled ab initio, basis which the department, what they are doing, they are sending letters to the recipient that since the registration of the supplier has been cancelled, retrospectively you are required to reverse the credit which you have initially availed. Now friends, whether the action of the department is justifiable under such situation, can the department 2 years down the line can come and say that, look, the registration certificate has been cancelled and therefore you are required to reverse the credit which was initially availed by me? To my mind, friends, the action of the department is without merit, erroneous, bad in law, and any recovery notice in this regard is liable to be set aside and quashed. Friends, this kind of action at the department end causes undue hardship on bona fide purchasers. Further, friends, one need to appreciate that when the buyer has availed the credit, all the conditions of the GST law were duly complied. The credit was taken on the basis of a tax invoice which was issued by a supplier who was well registered and whose registration was also effective on the date of supply. The buyer has made payment to the supplier of goods. The supplier has made payment to the government, and the supplier has also filed its GSTR1 return where he has disclosed the supplies made to the buyers. Payment have been made to the supplier within 180 days. So friends, if I have availed all, if I have complied with all the statutorily conditions which have been prescribed under the GST law at the time of availment, how can the department come and ask for the reversal of credit? For this, friends, in my mind, credit would not be deniable if there is no doubt on the genuineness of transaction. So what I'm trying to mean by genuineness of transaction is, friend, that from my limited experience, friends, I have seen that generally all these registration certificates which are getting cancelled retrospectively is on account of absconding supplier. Generally, I am saying, friend, is on account of absconding supplier, or cases where the supplier have admitted that they have not made supplies to the buyers and it is merely a book entry. Cases where the department have made a visit to the registered premise of the supplier and there was no one. So basically, that was a registration. The address in the registration certificate was only for availing the registration. Actually, no business was carried out from that registered premise. In these cases, friends, the department is, canceling the registration certificate retrospectively. So if the genuineness of my transaction is not in doubt, friends, the purchaser cannot be held responsible for fraudulent for the supplier's default or for the fraudulent act of the supplier. For this, friends, we have to litigate before the appellate forum, and we can place reliance upon some of the decisions which I have highlighted here. Is in the case of Aries India Limited, SMI Electrovire Private Limited, Juhi Alloys, Tata Motors, Onyx Design. Friends, in all these cases, the courts, honorable courts have taken a consistent view that if there is a fault at supplier's end, or if the suppliers have indulged into some kind of fraudulent activity, the buyer cannot be held responsible if the buyer has initially discharged, if the buyer has discharged the initial burden of proof for availing the credit. So what is important is, initially I have taken all precaution, due care was given at my end, at the buyer's end, before availing the credit. If that burden has been discharged, then that credit cannot be denied. And this view has been taken categorically in this following in the highlighted decisions, friends. And therefore, if the assessee is getting a notice from the department where the department has cancelled the registration certificate of the supplier retrospectively, then friends, what we need to do is we need to check the correctness of my credit availed, whether we have maintained whether we have maintained the register of whatever goods we have received. Those entries should be there, those documentary evidence should be there. So those document details that I have availed the credit on the basis of tax invoice. I have made entries in my gate register. When goods are received, I have made entry in my register. The consignment notes are there. Duty paying availing documents are there. So all these documents will come very handy to prove that whatever credit I have taken is within the four corners of law, and I should not be penalized on account of supplier's default. But these all things will invite litigation, friends. As I told you again and again, these all things will invite litigation. One need to do the cost benefit analysis. If let's say, if the disputed credit is only 20,000 rupees, friends, so I would not suggest to go and litigate in the matter. We should write a letter to the department where we'll say that with due respect, we have availed the credit as per the law. However, given the fact that the cost involved in the matter is very the cost of the litigation cost involved in the matter will be significant, we don't want to pursue in the matter, and then it is suggested to reverse the credit. So friends, I'm not saying that you need to make the payment. I'm saying that one also need to do the cost benefit analysis. Let's say if the demand is 20,000 rupees and if you have to incur legal cost for 2 lakh rupees, I would not suggest that. And if you are reversing, just write a letter to the department, we do not agree, and you are making this payment only because you don't want to litigate in the matter. So you have to come clean. The buyer need to come clean. And if there is a significant amount, friends, there is no reason that we should not fight. We have all the rights, and we are hopeful of getting a favorable decision from the appellate authority. So another important point is, friends, ITC utilization blocking of credit. If you see, friends, Rule 86A, it empowers the department. It empowers the department to restrict utilization of input tax credit where it has reason to believe that such credit has been fraudulently availed, or it is ineligible because the supplier has because there is no existence of the supplier, or the goods have been received, or the credit has been received without receipt of goods and services, or the tax has not been paid to the government, or there is no duty paying availing documents available with the buyer. So friends, So friends, the department has been vested right. Although believe me friend, that right is not coming from the act, because if you see the act, there is no restriction with respect to utilization of credit pertaining to such cases, which we have highlighted here. So what I'm trying to tell here is, friends, the law does not prescribe an embargo for blocking my credit. If the law is silent, if the CGST Act is silent, how can that restriction can be placed via the rule? It is a settled principle of law, friends, that rule cannot override the provision of law. So if there is no restriction under the GST law, under the CGST Act, that restriction cannot be placed via the CGST rules, and therefore such rules is erroneous and liable to be struck down. So, and why it should be struck down, friends? What are the reasons? The department has been given blatant right without informing me, without issuing a show cause notice. How can they block the credit? If they want to recover the credit, they have all the rights to issue show cause under Section 73, Section 74. 86A does not prescribe me an opportunity of personal hearing. The department has all the right to go and recover the money from the supplier of goods. So fundamentally, my natural right, the principle of natural justice is getting violated, and it is against Article 14, read with Article 19(1)(g) of the Constitution of India, friends. And this provision has been challenged before the Gujarat High Court, friends. Results are awaited, and it has been challenged in the case of Surat Mercantile Association versus UOI and Jariwala Sales Private Limited versus UOI. Notice has been issued in this case, friends, and we are hopeful that this rule will be struck down. But as I am telling you again and again, friends, this law is there. And generally, this law is there to restrict credit only where the department is pretty sure that the credit has been availed fraudulently. But having said that, friends, it may create unnecessary problems in the hands of genuine buyers also. So if the credit is significant, I would suggest that we should go and litigate in the matter. Even we should go and we can have a discussion with the commissioner also, where I can prove my genuinity. I can submit all the documentary evidence to substantiate the correctness of credit I have availed. However, this is the law, friends. If there is a huge cost, even if the commissioner does not agree with you and a significant cost is there, then it is suggested that we should go and file a writ petition before the honorable court. The last point is, friends, it talks about the Safari Retreat Private Limited. It is a Odisha High Court decision, friends, where the challenge was with respect to restricting credit which have been used in relation to construction of malls. The Honorable Court has said that since these malls would be used for providing an output service, since this mall, I will come to the earlier point, friends. 1 second. Friends, if you see these two provisions, one which talks about works contract services when supplied for construction of immobile property other than plant and machinery, except where it is an input service of other supply of goods and services. And in the another provision is goods and services which is used in relation to construction of an immobile property. So friends, on account of this restriction, a person who is constructing a mall and would be letting out that mall for renting purpose, on which the owner will be duly discharging GST liability on the output service. On the rentals which he will be receiving, he will be discharging GST on the rental services. The question which came for consideration before the Honorable Court was whether the credit would be admissible on the construction cost, which is used for constructing the mall. The Honorable Court, took a favorable view that the purpose of GST law is to allow seamless credit. Further, the assessee would be discharging tax on the output front, on the rentals. Therefore, credit would be admissible since the input services will be used for providing an output service and it is used in relation to furtherance of business and commerce. Therefore, credit would be admissible and the petition was allowed. So this was the decision of friends, this is the decision where the Odisha High Court has taken a favorable view and reported in the case of Safari Retreats Private Limited. So if a person, if an assessee is into similar business, which is used for providing an output tax related service on which he will be discharging GST, one may explore possibility of filing a writ petition before the Honorable Court, and one can also expect favorable decision. This is all from my side, friends. So any question?
Participant, kindly share your query at chat box or raise your hand to unmute, please.
Hello.
Yes, Ajay.
Yeah, you can go with the question here, sir.
Yes. Some question on the chat box.
1 second. Chat box. Good evening, everyone. I have one query. If a buyer fails to pay the value and tax in 180 days, he is liable to reverse credit under ITNA. Practically, no buyer voluntarily reverse the input. Can the supplier lodge information or complaint under ITNA against the buyer? If yes, what is the procedure? See, friends, it is not the GST law. See, you have all the right to go and tell the department. See, if the buyer is not paying you, you can definitely inform the same to the department. What will happen? The department will send a letter to the buyer asking for the reversal of credit along with interest. But friend, will it help you in getting your money? Will it help the supplier in getting the money from the buyer? To my mind, the answer is no. And per se, there is no law under the GST law which will tell what you need to do. This is a personal grievance between you and between the buyer and the supplier. The supplier just for any reason, he has all the rights to move before any court, and even he can go and tell the GST authority, but that will not help him in recovering his money. Is self-invoice mandatory for availing ITC on RCM? To my mind, friend, yes, absolutely. There is no reason, because if you see the duty paying availing documents, friends, if you see all the documents which allow you for availing the credit, it talks about an invoice which have been raised under section 31(3)(f). Today, if I have to avail credit on tax which I have paid under RCM, friends, tell me on what basis I can pay tax, on what basis I can avail the credit. Prior to GST law, under the service tax law, I could have availed credit on the basis of challan, GSTR 7 challan. But that provision is not there under the GST law. So on what basis you can avail the credit, friend? It has to be a duty paying document.
Yes, any more?
ITC, no, there are a lot of queries. So I'm just going through it. So ITC may not be taken because not reflected in 2A, 2B, and it is more than 5% of permissible limit. ITC may not be taken because, so this query is not clear to me. Bimalji, if you can highlight, if you can just tell me about your query. Bimalji, Bimal Kumar Mohta.
If you are here, please raise your hand and we will unmute you.
Sorry, please come again.
Sir, Bimal ji के लिए बोल रहे थे कि if he is here, he can raise his hand and we can unmute him.
Acha, okay. No, his query is not clear to me. ITC may not be taken because not reflected in 2B, and it is more than 5% of permissible limit. It is more than 5% of the. See, first thing is, friends, I do not go with 2B. I have a different view, friends. See, 2B has no legal, 2B, in fact, 2A also has no legal backup. Friends, 2B is what? Difference between 2A and 2B is static and 2A is, it changes every time. So what we have advised to our client is, before filing the returns, before filing the GSTR 3B returns, run a report. Run a report, and whatever credit is reflecting under GSTR 2A, you take the credit. If you see there is a circular which says that we should take credit only to the extent reflected in GSTR 2B as on 9th or 10th of every month, subsequent month. Friends, I have a different view. I have a completely different view. I don't go with 2B. 2B has no legal backup. 2B is static. What in case of, friends, somebody who files the return from 10 to 19, those things will be reflected in GSTR 2A. What stopped me from availing the credit? If the supplier has filed the returns from 10 to 19, which provision stops me from availing the credit? So what we are saying is, we will run the report on 19th, whatever credit is appearing in 2A, we will take credit, and then whatever credit is appearing in 2A, will take credit to that extent, and that 105% wala formula will be applicable on that. I don't go with 2B, friend, and it has no legal backup. One second. Please repeat what happens if supplier is not reachable. See, if supplier is not reachable means what? Supplier is absconding, you will get a letter from the department. If the supplier is not reachable, the department doesn't have any whereabouts about the supplier, they will send a notice to the receiver asking reversal of input tax credit. Now what the buyer need to do is, if he need to initially, the burden of proof initially is on the buyer. So he need to discharge that proof. Once that proof has been discharged, you have a very good case. And if the cost is significant, we should go and file a writ petition before the High Court against the recovery notice. And we should rely upon the decision which I have relied upon and which I have reflected in my presentation. ITC availing but not using for payment, in case required to reverse accrued in ITC in portal, will interest be attracted on reversal? ITC availing, case required to reverse accrued interest in portal, case required. ITC availing but not using for payment, in case required to reverse accrued ITC in portal, okay, will interest be, no, interest will not be required. If you have not utilized the input tax credit, interest would not be required to be paid. The law is very clear. So in fact, section 50 has also been notified. The amended section 50 has also been notified, where it talks about payment of interest only where payment of interest on reversal only when there is a recovery notice. Although with due respect, I do not agree with that provision itself, because interest is accessory to the principle which has been held by Supreme Court in case of Pratibha processor. So where is the loss to the government exchequer if I have not utilized the credit? So therefore, in my mind, if I have not utilized the credit, I am not supposed to pay any interest. Match ITC missed to avail within September relating to last financial year. Can the said ITC be claimed post September? If you ask me, friend, this provision has been challenged before the honorable court. If I go by the law, sorry, you cannot take the credit. If I go by the law, if I go by the strict interpretation of law, sorry, you won't be able to get the credit. However, friends, there are some, there is another solution to this problem, which I cannot tell you over this forum. Extremely sorry that, you can contact me directly on the another option which we can explore. Legally, if you ask me, people have challenged this provision that, the time limit the time limit for availing the credit, the restriction for availing the time limit is a very cumbersome process, and since ITC is a substantiative benefit, a credit should be admissible. However, it is pending before the courts and no view have been taken till dates, right? So we have to wait until there is a decision on the matter by the honorable court. If a person stay at night for the official purpose at hotel, then can we avail on ITC on his dinner bill? Hotel bill, friends, if one is, if your office and the hotel expenses are within the same place, you can avail the credit on you can credit ITC on hotel charges on room rents, not on food and beverages. F&B is restricted under section 17(5). On hotel charges you can avail, the room rentals you can avail the credit. Safari retreat perhaps challenged before the apex court, although judgment not state. So what is the impact? So friends, I have told you, if you have a huge cost, then we should go and file a writ petition before the honorable court. See, Safari retreat is a Odisha High Court decision. If you want a similar, if you have a similar matter and huge cost involved, there is no reason you should not go and challenge that provision before the honorable court at your respective states. So if, let's say, if the assessee is in West Bengal, on similar lines, we should go and file a writ petition before the honorable court. And see, there is no harm in going and challenging the provision, because the law is very clear. The law restricts availment of credit. So if there is a huge cost, in my view, you should be allowed to take the credit, but law is there. So we need to challenge the law. We should go and file a writ petition before the honorable court on the ground that GST law talks about seamless credit. I am paying tax on my output. So why there is a restriction? It is against Article 14 and read with Article 19(1)(g) of the Constitution of India. So on that basis, we need to go and challenge before the honorable court. Buyer having all the convincing evidence to take credit, but mineral supply is not recovered. What is the solution? So as I have already told friends, that if I have initially discharged the burden of proof for availing the credit, I have a very strong case. I need to challenge that matter. The department will not agree. So we need to file a writ petition before the honorable court, High Court. Whether we should follow 2A, 2B. Friends, 2B has no legal backup. Believe me, I never suggest, or if I never, follow 2B, it is 2A. It is 2A, although 2A also has no legal backup. But as a matter of fact, we follow 2A, and till 20th before filing of GSTR 3B returns, whatever is reflected in GSTR 2A, we take credit on the basis of 2A. There is a circular which is against my view. However, the circular is binding on the department and not on the assessees. And tell me one reason, friend, that someone who has filed the return from 11th to 19th, which provision under the GST law restrict me from availing the credit? There is no provision under the GST law which restricts availment of credit for the supplier who have filed return from 11 to 19. If I go GST as per GSTR 2B, I cannot claim the credit for the return which have been filed from 11 to 19. So I am strictly against 2B, friends. I go by GSTR 2A. I think that I have covered all the queries. So is there any other questions? If I missed out any other points, friends?
Vishwanath Pai ji has raised his hand. Will I mute him?
Hello.
Yeah,
Vishwanath ji, I have unmuted you. Please go ahead and ask the question.
yeah. Thank you, Rahul ji. Am I audible, sir?
Yeah,
Ajay ji?
yeah. Please go ahead.
Sir, actually, manufacturer, he purchased goods and it was in transit on 31st of March.
Okay.
Since it was reflected in 2A, 2B, the accountant has taken the credit. But now when we are doing the audit, we have told him that you should not have taken the credit.
Correct.
Now, अभी लेके तो हो गया. Now should he reverse in the subsequent, मतलब April या May में and pay interest?
करना पड़ेगा sir. This I have already covered in my presentation. If you see,
Okay.
I'll cover to that point, sir. One second. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I'm able to see. Okay, fine, sir.
See, it may lead to interest liability, complete disclosure required, itna proper disclosure required, and then duty paying. You have not received the goods and service, right?
Correct.
You have not complied with this condition. I'll show you. On receipt of goods and services, you have not received the goods and services.
नहीं, actually the buyer was bearing
मैं समझ रहा हूँ सर. वो आप देखिए होता क्या है ना, 30 को माल बेचा, ट्रांजिट में 4 दिन रह गया है, तो आपको क्रेडिट सर अप्रैल में मिलेगा, मार्च में नहीं मिलेगा, सो यू नीड टू रिवर्स द क्रेडिट। एंड अगर आपने यूटिलाइज नहीं किया है तो आपको इंटरेस्ट नहीं लगेगा।
नहीं, यूटिलाइज कर लिया सर, यूटिलाइज कर लिया, तो
अब
अभी 1 महीने का इंटरेस्ट पे करना
देना
पड़ेगा।
पड़ेगा सर, देना पड़ेगा, देना
ठीक है,
पड़ेगा,
ओके,
देना
या
पड़ेगा।
थैंक्स फॉर एडवाइस सर।
Yeah, yeah. Any other query? मतलब ITC में you know प्रकाश जी, I don't know, मतलब I'm getting very few query, मतलब am I very good or whatever I have said, you know, it is not clear to anybody.
Ajay
Sir,
ji,
Sushovan Das, sir,
Ajay
Sushovan
ji,
Das has raised his hand.
अच्छा,
ITC में query नहीं हो।
Sushovan ji, I have unmuted you. Please ask your question.
Yes.
सर,
जी
गुड इवनिंग सर।
जी जी
सर मेरा नाम सुशोभन दास है, मैं इंडियन चैम्बर ऑफ कॉमर्स से हूँ सर।
जी।
सर हम लोगों को सेमिनार होता है, तो सेमिनार
आलोक जी
में।
है, आलोक जी है वहाँ पे अभी,
हाँ सर, है सर।
है ना? ठीक है,
हाँ
आलोक जी
सर,
को,
है।
आलोक जी को कन्वे कीजिएगा मेरा हाय।
जी सर, जी सर, जी
बोलिए
सर।
बोलिए।
सर बोल रहे हैं कि हम लोगों को जो सेमिनार होता है, सपोज आईटीसी में कुछ सेमिनार हो रहा है, 50 लोग डेलीगेट्स आ रहा है, तो हम लोग आईटीसी वाले को बोल दिया कि भाई 50 लोग हम लोगों को डेलीगेट्स आ रहा है, तो आप उन लोगों को चाय कॉफी दीजिएगा, लंच टाइम में लंच दीजिएगा। तो आईटीसी 50 लोगों के लिए हम लोगों को एक डील दिया है फूड के लिए, तो फूड के लिए क्या हम लोग आईटीसी
नहीं
अपील कर
मिलेगा,
सकते हैं?
नहीं मिलेगा। देखिए आप मेरे स्क्रीन देखिए एक बार, देखिए यहाँ पे फूड एंड बेवरेजेस दिख रहा है,
हम्म,
इनएडमिसिबल इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट फूड एंड बेवरेजेस।
जी सर।
अब देखिए हम लोग क्या करते हैं, ऑल्दो आई शुड नॉट
हम्म,
बी टेलिंग ऑल दिस इन दिस फोरम एंड ऑल, वो क्या
हम्म,
करते हैं ना, फूड एंड बेवरेजेस का हम लोग नहीं दिखाते, हम लोग कॉन्फ्रेंस चार्ज दिखाते हैं।
जी सर,
समझे मैं क्या बोल रहा हूँ?
जी सर।
वी शो इट एज ए कॉन्फ्रेंस चार्ज।
ओके, ओके।
आई हैव नॉट एडवाइज यू एनीथिंग आउट ऑफ द ये।
सर ये तो फर्दरेंस ऑफ बिजनेस है, तो भी फिर हम लोगों को नहीं मिलेगा ना आईटीसी?
नहीं बट देखिए लॉ में रिस्ट्रिक्ट किया हुआ ना, यहाँ पे फूड एंड बेवरेजेस अगर आप हटा देंगे तो आपको क्रेडिट मिल जाएगा।
ओके,
ये स्पेसिफिकली डिनाई किया हुआ फूड एंड बेवरेजेस।
ओके, ओके, ओके सर, आई गॉट योर पॉइंट। थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू।
जैसे मोटर कार इंश्योरेंस जो है उस पे जो
जी।
जीएसटी लगती है,
जी जी जी। तो मोटर कार आप किस चीज के लिए यूज कर रहे हैं?
बेसिकली अपने ऑफिस के लिए।
नहीं मिलेगा, नहीं मिलेगा सर, नहीं मिलेगा। ये आप देख लीजिए, जनरल इंश्योरेंस सर्विसिंग रिपेयर एंड मेंटेनेंस इन रिलेशन टू मोटर व्हीकल।
थैंक्स अजय जी।
Sir,
इनका
Ravi
इनका है, रवि
Sureka
जी
ji
का
has
है,
raised his hand.
रवि जी का है।
एनीवन, यस यस, रवि सुरेखा जी।
Ravi ji, please go ahead, ask your question.
गुड इवनिंग सर।
गुड इवनिंग रवि जी, बोलिए।
सर मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है, जैसे वेयर हाउस में जैसे आईटीसी नहीं मिलता है, अगर वेयर हाउस का इंश्योरेंस कराएं तो उसका आईटीसी मिलेगा क्या?
किसका आईटीसी नहीं मिलता है?
वेयर हाउस इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टीज, और उसका
नहीं
इंश्योरेंस करवाते हैं अगर।
नहीं, ये गलत क्वेश्चन है कि इमोल प्रॉपर्टी का क्रेडिट नहीं मिलता है। वेयर हाउस का अगर आप करवा रहे हैं, वेयर हाउस किस चीज के लिए है आपका? आप गुड्स रखते हैं?
नहीं, लेट आउट करने के लिए।
आप वेयर हाउस
ले-
लेट आउट किए हैं, भाड़ा में जीएसटी दे रहे
हाँ
हैं आप,
हाँ हाँ हाँ, जहाँ भाड़ा
तो
जीएसटी दे रहे हैं,
उसका इंश्योरेंस पे आपको क्रेडिट मिलेगा।
मिलेगा ना? बस वही कंफर्म करा था।
मिलेगा मिलेगा मिलेगा।
ओके, थैंक यू।
मैंने इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी पे ये, राहुल जी, रवि जी, मैंने जो बोला है क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगा, वो है कंस्ट्रक्शन को लेके। अगर आप एक इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी बना रहे हैं, मैं नहीं बोल रहा हूँ, लॉ बोल रहा है, सेक्शन 17(5) बोल रहा है कि आपने अगर एक इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी कंस्ट्रक्ट कर रहे हैं तो तब आपको क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगा। आप अगर वेयर हाउस बना रहे हैं तो वो सिविल वर्क पे क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगा, बट आप वो वेयर हाउस भाड़ा पे लगा दिए और वेयर हाउस को भाड़ा में लगाते समय आपने उसका कोई इंश्योरेंस लिया है तो उसका क्रेडिट आपको जरूर मिलेगा।
ओके, थैंक यू सर।
एनी मोर क्वेरी?
Sir, शायद एक दो क्वेरी है चैट पे, अगर
अच्छा मैं
देखेंगे।
देखता हूँ one second।
हाँ।
Can I take credit in case I pay tax under RCM on freight? तो ये तो क्रेडिट आपको मिलेगा ही मिलेगा, बट इट इज सब्जेक्ट टू द फैक्ट कि आपका आउटपुट भी होना चाहिए। आप जो ये बोल रहे हैं ये credit if you are availing then you should have output also. Basically, see, basic conditions say services should be used in relation to furtherance of business. So if you are availing transportation services, that will qualify as input. Yes, credit मिलेगा. Yes, rate of tax 5% है. RCM में transportation 5% है. आप वो दीजिए, credit आपको मिल जाएगा. But credit मिलने का और भी conditions है कि it should be used for output service. तो आपका आउटपुट भी होना चाहिए. मतलब ऐसा मत कीजिएगा आपका आउटपुट कुछ भी नहीं है और आपने इनपुट ले लिया है. Credit would be admissible subject to you complying all other conditions under section 16(2). Sir, our supplier is responsible to pay freight. Sir, our supplier is responsible. Sir, our supplier is responsible to pay freight, but instead of paying freight directly, he deduct freight from his supply value. Huh? Sir, this question is not clear. Amit Kakkar ji. Amit Kakkar ji.
अमित जी अनम्यूट कीजिए अपने.
नमस्कार सर.
नमस्ते अमित जी, बोलिए.
सर हम परचेज करते हैं पार्टी से,
जी.
तो फ्रेट वैसे तो वो रिस्पॉन्सिबल है पे करने के लिए, लेकिन वो अपनी जो सप्लाई वैल्यू है उसमें फ्रेट कम करके हमें बिल बना के दे देते हैं और हमें ही कैश में पे करना पड़ जाता है फ्रेट, जो कि
मैं
वो
नहीं
अपनी
समझा
invoice-
ये कैसे होता है. मैं नहीं समझा. 100
सर
रुपए
देखो,
का अगर माल था, एक्स फैक्ट्री है
रुपए का
या
माल-
एफओआर है? एक्स
सर
फैक्ट्री है या एफओआर है?
सर वैसे तो एफओआर है, उनकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है पे करना.
एफओआर है, ठीक है.
हाँ, लेकिन सर वो डायरेक्टली पे नहीं करते, वो हमसे ही एक बार पे करवा देते हैं और बाद में अपनी इनवॉइस वैल्यू में से वो जो फ्रेट की वैल्यू वो कम कर देते हैं, ताकि हमारी परचेज का जो अमाउंट उन्होंने लेना होता है हमसे वो कम कर देते हैं. मतलब अल्टीमेटली
नहीं, नहीं,
उनकी
नहीं,
ही
देखिए,
लायबिलिटी बनती है.
नहीं, वो क्या, लॉ इज वेरी क्लियर. Someone who is liable to pay amount to the GTA, he is required to discharge tax under reverse charge. Law is very clear on this.
तो
बिल्टी
इसके
ट्रांसपोर्टर को पैसे देने की जिसकी लाइबिलिटी है, जो पेपर आपका बोलेगा who is supposed to make payment to the supplier transporter, that person is liable to discharge tax under reverse charge.
ट्रांसपोर्टर को तो सर, ट्रांसपोर्टर की बिल में तो हमारा ही नाम होता है सर,
तो
परचेजर का ही नाम होता है.
आपका अगर नहीं, ट्रांसपोर्टर को एंगेज कौन, क्या पेमेंट किसको करना है ट्रांसपोर्टर को?
सर ट्रांसपोर्टर की जीआर नंबर में हमारा ही नाम होता है, लेकिन हमें
अरे सर,
अल्टीमेटली उसकी रिकवरी हो जाती है सप्लायर से, वो हमें परचेज वैल्यू में से माइनस
सर
कर
आप
देते हैं.
क्या करते हैं, मैं उसकी बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ. मैं बात कर रहा हूँ आज अगर ट्रांसपोर्टर को पैसे देने की जिम्मेदारी किसकी है, मेरी है या
हमारी
सप्लायर की?
आज
अगर
मेरी है सर.
आज अगर आपकी है तो आप फिर ट्रांसपोर्टेशन खर्चा मानते हैं अपने बुक्स में?
सर ट्रांसपोर्टेशन बुक तो कर देते हैं, लेकिन उसको फिर हम क्रेडिट बाद में सप्लायर को डेबिट करके उसको रिकवर कर लेते हैं.
नहीं, ये गलत कर रहे हैं, ये प्रोसेस गलत है आपका. क्योंकि कभी भी चिट्ठी आ जाएगी डिपार्टमेंट से आपके ऊपर, आपको देखिए आप अपना कन्वीनियंस के हिसाब से क्या कर रहे हैं, मैं उस पर नहीं जाऊंगा. लॉ इज वेरी क्लियर ऑन दिस. जीटीए का जो पेमेंट जिसकी लायबिलिटी होती है उसको पेमेंट करना होता है. आपके ऊपर रिस्क क्या है? आपके ऊपर रिस्क ये है कि कल को अगर आप जीटीए को पेमेंट कर रहे हैं, डिपार्टमेंट पूछेगा जीटीए को पेमेंट किसने किया, आप बोलेंगे मैंने किया है. तो आपने किया तो रिवर्स चार्ज में टैक्स दीजिए, आप टैक्स दे के क्रेडिट
Okay,
लीजिए. अभी प्रॉब्लम
Okay,
कहाँ आता है, अगर ये एफओआर कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है, अगर ये
हाँ जी.
एफओआर कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है तो क्या होता होगा, 100 रुपए का माल है पहुंचा के, तो बायर बोलता होगा 5 रुपए काम करो, आप 10 रुपए का ट्रांसपोर्टेशन है, 100 रुपए का माल है पहुंचा के. आप एक बार लाउड स्पीकर बंद कर लेंगे, आवाज आ रही है, इको हो रही है. हेलो, हाँ. 100 रुपए का माल है एफओआर में, 90 रुपए गुड्स का है, 10 रुपए ट्रांसपोर्टेशन का है. तो वो क्या बोलता है, एक काम करो, आप 10 रुपए ट्रांसपोर्टर को दे दो, आप मेरे को जो पेमेंट करोगे 90 रुपए का करना, राइट? उस केस में क्या होता है, आपको इस सप्लायर को ये बोलना पड़ेगा कि देखो तुम हमको एक डॉक्यूमेंट दे दो जिससे ये प्रूव हो जाए कि ये जो भी पेमेंट है, यू आर रिक्वायर्ड टू मेक पेमेंट टू द सप्लायर एंड आई हैव मेड पेमेंट ओनली ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ यू. उसके बाद क्या है, आप जीटीए का खर्चा अपना बुक्स में मत खर्चा कीजिएगा, आप अपना परचेज 100 रुपये दिखाइएगा. आप 90 रुपया परचेज और 10 रुपया ट्रांसपोर्टेशन मत दिखाइएगा, आप डायरेक्टली 100 रुपये का परचेज दिखाइएगा और आप 90 रुपया पेमेंट आप सप्लायर को कर दीजिए टूवर्ड्स गुड. और supplier will book 10 rupees expenses as transportation in his books and also in his return. ये चीज क्लियर हुई है?
अमोल जी,
हाँ सर, मेरे दो क्वेरी है सर। नंबर 1 क्वेरी, जैसे मेरे क्लाइंट है, उनका बैटरी का कारोबार है, तो बड़ी बड़ी कंपनी भी आज के दिन क्या कर रही है कि जो मटेरियल का बिल बना उसमें जीएसटी चार्ज कर ली और उसके नीचे में डिस्काउंट स्कीम करके लेस करके नेट बिल बनाई।
सर
तो
प्लीज एक बार
मेरे
फिर से
समझ में तो
बोलेगा
ये चीज अलाउ
सर,
नहीं था।
एक बार फिर से बोलेंगे सर, मतलब आई जस्ट मिस
जैसे आप समझिए इस बात को कि 10 बैटरी खरीदा,
ठीक है
15,000 करके,
ठीक है
1.5 लाख रुपए हुए।
ठीक है
1.5 लाख पे उसने जीएसटी जोड़ दिया,
ठीक है
नीचे में फिर लेस कर दिया। मान लीजिए 1,000 करके उसको डिस्काउंट करना है, उसी बिल में
ठीक है
1,000 करके लेस करके 15,000 रुपया लेस करके नेट अमाउंट बना दिया।
ठीक है।
ये चीज परमिसिबल है क्या?
मैं इशू अभी भी नहीं समझा सर, आप क्या बोल रहे हैं? मतलब 15 बैटरी है, 1.5 लाख रुपए की बैटरी हो गई, 1.5 लाख के नीचे वो किया डिस्काउंट करके 15,000 दिखा दिया।
जीएसटी लगाने के बाद, जीएसटी चार्ज करने के बाद
ओ
उस
जीएसटी
बिल
चार्ज करने
में
के
वो
बाद
डिस्काउंट कर रहा है।
तो गलत है, मतलब देखिए बोलना नहीं चाहिए, बट ये सब इट इज अ कॉमर्शियल कॉल। जनरली आपको ये बोलना चाहिए कि आप जो 1.5 लाख का किए हैं, आप सरकार को ज्यादा टैक्स क्यों दे रहे हैं? अगर 15,000 रुपया डिस्काउंट है तो आप 1.5 लाख माइनस 15,000 करके 1,35,000
ये
रुपया
जो
टैक्स
चीज है ना,
लगाइए। हाँ
अब मैं आपको ये जो कहानी है एक्साइड इंडस्ट्रीज की बोल रहा हूँ, एक्साइड बैटरी जो सबसे टॉप है आज के दिन,
जी सर।
वो इस तरीके का काम करी शुरू दिन से, जुलाई 17 से कर रहे। मैं सोचा कि क्या बात है, ये तो कानून है कि
नहीं
इतनी
तो
बड़ी कंपनी
अगर
ऐसा गलती क्यों करेगी?
नहीं नहीं देखिए, कंपनी बड़ी छोटी कुछ भी हो उससे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है। गलती करने वाले गलती करते हैं, और ये गलती, ये मैं नहीं बोलूंगा गलती है। ये देखिए क्या होता है ना, आज आप बोल रहे एक्साइड को गलती, एक्साइड बोलेगा ये मेरा बिजनेस प्रिंसिपल है, मैं डिस्काउंट देता हूँ आफ्टर टैक्स, ठीक है।
मैं ये बोल रहा हूँ, देखिए क्या है सबसे बड़ी बात है, एक अभी जो जीएसटी में जो नॉर्म्स है कि जीएसटी नॉर्म्स में अपने ऊपर चॉइस नहीं है कि हम ज्यादा टैक्स दे या कम टैक्स दे। वो जो एक्ट है, जो लॉ है, उसमें कैसे बिलिंग बनाना है, कि किसको टैक्सेबल अमाउंट होगा, सब तो वहाँ डिफाइन किया हुआ है। तो वो
देखिए
तो एकदम स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड ब्रीच
नहीं
कर
नहीं,
रहा है।
लॉ में गलत कुछ नहीं किया एक्साइड, लॉ में गलत नहीं है।
लॉ
एक
में
चीज
गलत किया ना, वहां
नहीं
जब
है।
लॉ में ये चीज दिया हुआ है कि क्या टैक्सेबल वैल्यू होगी कोई
हाँ
सामान की,
ठीक है।
तो वहां तो वो गलती
एक
कर दिया
साइड
कि
बोला,
टैक्सेबल
एक साइड बोला है कि टैक्सेबल वैल्यू 1.5 लाख का है।
नहीं, उसी बिल में वो रिबेट डिस्काउंट कर
मैं
रहा है
वही
ना।
बोल
अगर
रहा
वो
हूँ।
बाद वाले बिल बाद में वो रिबेट डिस्काउंट बुक्स में करता तो
नहीं
हम ये
नहीं
चीज मान
सर,
सकते थे।
नहीं वो ठीक है। एक साइड बोल रहा है कि ये बुक कीमत है 1.5 लाख रुपए, 1.5
हाँ।
लाख पे मैं जीएसटी सरकार को दे रहा हूँ, सरकार को ज्यादा जीएसटी मिल रहा है,
हम्म।
सरकार को कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं, सरकार की तरफ से कुछ नहीं होगा। अब वो बोला कि देखो 1.5 लाख का मेरा बिल है, अब हम ये 1.5 लाख में आपको 15,000 हम छोड़ दे रहे हैं।
एनीवे,
कॉमर्शियल चीज है,
सेकेंड,
कॉमर्शियल चीज है, दिस इज अ कॉमर्शियल
नहीं
थिंग।
नहीं, देखिए मेरा ये कहना कॉमर्शियल चीज है, गवर्नमेंट को ज्यादा टैक्स पड़ रहा है, गवर्नमेंट को प्रॉब्लम नहीं है,
जी
आपकी बात मैं मानता हूँ। लेकिन मेरा ये कहना पर्टिकुलर, जब एक्ट इस तरीके का है जीएसटी की, जहाँ सब कुछ डिफाइंड है कि किसको रिबेट एंड डिस्काउंट, किस वाले में जीएसटी एप्लीकेबल होगा, किस वाले में जीएसटी नहीं एप्लीकेबल होगा, तो वहाँ
हाँ
फिर अपने पास अपनी सोच नहीं बनती है। जो अपने सेलर है या बायर है, उनका अपना ओपिनियन नहीं बनता है। जो एज पर एक्ट जहाँ डिफाइन किया हुआ है, हम लोगों को तो उसको फॉलो करना चाहिए,
ये जीएसटी,
मेरा
ये
ये
आपका
मानना है।
क्वेरी जीएसटी लॉ का नहीं है सर, ये कॉमर्शियल चीज है, इट हैज नथिंग टू डू विद जीएसटी लॉ।
अजय जी,
ठीक
मैं
है,
इसमें
सेकेंड मेरा क्वेरी है सर, ये पॉइंट
अजय
पे
जी एक
बहस
मिनट,
करके कोई फायदा नहीं होगा। सेकेंड पॉइंट मेरा ये है सर कि जैसे रेस्टोरेंट सर्विसेज में पहले तो इनपुट क्रेडिट अलाउ था,
रेस्टोरेंट में पहले मेरे हिसाब से पहले भी नहीं था सर।
इनपुट क्रेडिट जब 12% हम लोग का उसमें जीएसटी रेट था, बाद में उसको जो है 5% फ्लैट विदाउट इनपुट किया गया था।
1 सेकेंड सर, 1 सेकेंड, 1 सेकेंड, 1 सेकेंड, मेरी आवाज आ रही है आपको?
हाँ हाँ, मेरे को आ रही, मेरी बस जस्ट क्वेरी यही है
सर मेरे
कि
हिसाब से
जैसे,
क्रेडिट नहीं है, क्रेडिट फूड एंड बेवरेजेस में फर्स्ट डे से नहीं है सर।
ओके ओके, ठीक है सर, ओके, थैंक यू सर।
अच्छा अच्छा अजय जी, मैं अमोल जी के बात से ही चलता हूँ।
जी
1,35,000 का मेरा कॉस्ट पड़ा अल्टीमेट,
हाँ।
मैं अपने कस्टमर को 1,40,000 में बेच दिया।
आपने अपने कस्टमर को
1,40,000 में बेच दिया, एक साइट से परचेज करके
हाँ ठीक
1,35,000
है,
में परचेज किए।
ठीक है
और 140 में जीएसटी लगा के हमने बेच दिया।
बेच दिए, ठीक है।
तो ये जो अब 10,000 के ऊपर जो मैंने एक्स्ट्रा जीएसटी पेमेंट कर दिया एक्साइड को, तो उसका
किसको?
बेनिफिट तो मेरे को नहीं मिलेगा।
नहीं, आप एक चीज समझिए, मैं आपको क्या बोल रहा हूँ, इसमें प्रॉब्लम कहाँ आया है? प्रॉब्लम आ रहा है अमोल जी का। प्रॉब्लम कहाँ? अमोल जी का कहना था आप 1.5 लाख का माल है, 1.5 लाख पे लेट से हाइपोथेटिकली 10% जीएसटी है, तो मेरा क्या हुआ? 1.5 लाख प्लस 15,000, 1,65,000 रुपया। हमको 1,65,000 आईटीसी को देना, एक्साइड को देना था। अब एक्साइड ने क्या किया? एक्साइड ने मेरे के ऊपर एक क्रेडिट नोट दे दिया 15,000 रुपए का।
नहीं सर, क्रेडिट नोट नहीं दे रही है सर,
अरे मैं समझ रहा हूँ, मैं आपको एग्जाम मैं दूसरा
उसी बिल में लेस कर रही है।
अरे मैं समझाना चाह रहा हूँ, मैं
सर,
क्या
हाँ सर,
किया
ठीक
है,
है,
मैं
आगे
दूसरा
बढ़िए।
चीज बोल रहा हूँ।
ठीक है,
मैं
ठीक
बोल
है।
रहा हूँ अब एक्साइड ने क्या किया, एक 15,000 का क्रेडिट नोट छोड़ दिया। तो मेरा पेमेंट कितना हुआ? मेरा पेमेंट था 1.5 लाख प्लस 15,000। अब मेरा हुआ 15,000 का, मैं टैक्स अलग से दूंगा नहीं, मेरा टोटल हुआ पेमेंट 1.5 लाख रुपया। तो ये कॉमर्शियल चीज क्या हुआ? जीएसटी में क्यों डिफरेंस नहीं आया? क्योंकि आईटीसी बोला, आईटीसी ने एक्साइड बोला कि मेरा वैल्यू ऑफ गुड्स है 1.5 लाख रुपए। ऑल्दो इन माय व्यू एक्साइड को क्या करना चाहिए था, वो सरकार को ज्यादा पैसे क्यों देगा? अगर उसको डिस्काउंट देना था तो वो 1.5 लाख माइनस 15,000 करके 10% लगाता, सो दैट सरकार को कम पैसा मिलता। 1,35,000 रुपये, 13,500 रुपये सरकार को मिलता, अभी सरकार को 15,000 रुपया मिल रहा है, तो गवर्नमेंट को ज्यादा पैसा मिल गया। आप बोल रहे हैं कि मैंने सरकार को ज्यादा दे दिया, आपने सरकार को ज्यादा नहीं दिया है। आपका 1.5 लाख का माल था, 1.5 लाख पे आपने जीएसटी दिया है, और एक्साइड बोलेगा देखिए ये 1.5 लाख का माल है, ये एक्साइड कभी नहीं बोलेगा ये 1,35,000 का माल है। मैं जो 15,000 रुपया दे रहा हूँ, इट इज बिजनेस, इज माई बिजनेस कॉल। और ये बिजनेस कॉल क्या, मैं हो सकता है आपको नेक्स्ट इनवॉइस पे नहीं दूं। ये जो मैं एक्सेस आपको डिस्काउंट दे रहा हूँ, इट इज अ बिजनेस कॉल, इट कैन बी ऑन अकाउंट ऑफ एनी रीजन। क्या होता है ना, ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि आप 5 लाख का माल देंगे तो हम आपको नीचे में 3% और डिस्काउंट दे देंगे। दैट कैन बी वन ऑफ द बिजनेस पॉलिसीज विच मे बी फॉलोड, but you cannot discount, you cannot dispute the fact the value of goods was 1,50,000 rupees. If that was not the case, then why Exide has charged GST on 1,50,000 rupees? It is a commercial thing, or basis which Exide is passing on the credit, passing a credit note आप बोल लीजिए, या passing or taking the less money from you. सर का क्वेरी था, अगर मेरे को अलग अलग इनवॉइस देता तो मेरे को प्रॉब्लम नहीं था, एक में दे दिया तो मेरे को प्रॉब्लम था।
चंदन जी, kindly unmute your.
हेलो।
Yes.
जी
Yes, चंदन जी।
हाँ सर, ऐसा है कि जैसे हमारे क्लाइंट हैं, उनका ट्रांसपोर्ट का सर्विस है, ठीक है।
जी।
तो ट्रांसपोर्ट में वो लोग क्या करते हैं, एक रोड ट्रांसपोर्टेशन का भी सर्विस देते हैं, प्लस लोडिंग अनलोडिंग का भी सर्विस देते हैं।
जी।
एमपीएल को, एक एमपीएल यहाँ पर है,
ठीक है।
उसको दे देंगे। तो रोड ट्रांसपोर्टेशन सर्विसेज में उनको जो फ्रेट मिलता है उस पर उनको जीएसटी नहीं मिलता है, ना ही जीएसटी का पेमेंट आरसीएम में वो करते हैं, ना वो फॉरवर्ड चार्ज में करते हैं, मतलब उसमें पेमेंट होता ही नहीं है। और वो सिर्फ लोडिंग अनलोडिंग का जो सर्विस का जो इनवॉइस इशू करते हैं, उन्हीं का पेमेंट उनको मिलता है।
18% लगा रहे हैं उस पे,
18% उसमें लग रहा है।
ठीक है, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है।
लेकिन फ्रेट सर्विसेज, फ्रेट का पेमेंट अकाउंट में आ रहा है, उसमें टैक्स का पेमेंट कोई नहीं कर रहा है।
कोई नहीं कर रहा, नहीं सप्लायर जो रिसीवर है वो कर रहा होगा।
कोई नहीं कर रहा है।
नहीं, हो नहीं सकता सर, हो नहीं सकता।
ऐसा हो
क्या
रहा है।
ट्रांसपोर्ट होती है, क्या ट्रांसपोर्ट होती है?
एश छाई।
ऐश पे तो एग्जामिशन भी नहीं है, एग्जामिशन नहीं है ऐश पे। हो रहा होगा, आप चेक कीजिए, हो रहा होगा, ऐसा हो नहीं सकता है।
अच्छा सर, माने कि हमारे अकाउंट में 2 पैसा आया है फ्रेट का,
जी,
तो उसके लिए हमको भी तो इनवॉइस इशू करना पड़ेगा।
आप तो इनवॉइस डेफिनेटली इशू करते होंगे, और इनवॉइस पे आपका लिखा हुआ रहेगा नीचे में कि ये जो भी पेमेंट है इज लायबल टू बी डिस्चार्ज अंडर रिवर्स चार्ज बाय द सप्लायर बाय द रिसीवर ऑफ सर्विस।
हाँ, तो हमारा तो वो सेक्ट कोड 996791 चलेगा।
सेक्शन 93 रीड विद नोटिफिकेशन नंबर 13 of 2017।
और नहीं, सेक्ट कोड बोल रहे हैं सर।
हाँ एसएससी कोड लगेगा ना
996791 चलेगा वहां पे।
सर, वो एसएससी कोड याद नहीं है सर, अभी मौका नहीं मिला याद करने का। मतलब इसमें क्या है,
नहीं, वहाँ
लायबिलिटी
पे
जरूर
सर
रहेगी, और ये अगर
कंफ्यूजन
सामने
वहाँ
वाला
हो रहा है मुझे।
कंपनी है क्या, सामने वाला
अच्छा,
रिसीवर कंपनी है?
कंपनी है, और जहां तक मालूम है कि वो आरसीएम, क्योंकि सेम डिस्प्यूट उस पर चल रहा है, वो आरसीएम को पेमेंट नहीं कर रहा है।
नहीं,
तो
100%
हमने
100% इसमें आरसीएम की लायबिलिटी है, डॉक्यूमेंट बना लीजिए। और आप बिल्टी आप इशू कर रहे हैं, तो आपका क्लाइंट बिल्टी इशू कर रहा है, तो
हाँ हाँ
बिल्टी इशू कर रहा है आपका क्लाइंट,
हाँ कर रहा है।
100% रिवर्स चार्ज में सामने वाले की लायबिलिटी है।
लेकिन
बट
वहां पे ये है कि अब कंपनी से ये कॉल आ रहा है कि आप 996791 में की जगह 996511 में बिल बनाइए।
तो जनरली जीटीए का 6511 में होता है, मेरे को जो रफली याद है 996511 में होता है।
6791 होता है सर।
नहीं नहीं, एक
जीटीए
सेकंड, एक सेकंड रुकिए, मैं
एक
खोलता हूँ,
मिनट।
एक सेकंड, एक सेकंड। आप एक काम कीजिए, व्हाट्स योर गुड नेम?
चंदन कुमार।
चंदन जी, आप मेरा एक काम कीजिए, मैं यहाँ पर नंबर दे रहा हूँ, ये मेरा नंबर मैंने मैसेज किया है,
हम्म,
दिख गया आपको?
हाँ सर।
तो आप मेरे से इस पे कल एक बार बात कर लीजिएगा, सो दैट अदर पीपल एटलीस्ट उनका जो क्वेरी है इट कैन गेट रिजॉल्व। तो ये बेसिकली गलत हो रहा है, सामने वाला रिसीवर गलत कर रहा है, आपको उनको एक चिट्ठी लिखना पड़ेगा, उनको ये बोलना पड़ेगा आप गलत कहाँ कर रहे हैं। मे बी इट इज ऑल्सो पॉसिबल कि आपने गलती किया हो एचएसएन कोड को लेके, तो आपको वो चीज रेक्टिफाई करनी पड़ेगी, और अगर आपने एचएसएन कोड गलती किया है तो आपको वो भी चीज रेक्टिफाई करनी पड़ेगी। अदरवाइज मे बी इन फ्यूचर ये हो सकता है कि उन लोग बोले मैंने जीटीए सर्विस ली नहीं थी, अगर वो जीटीए सर्विस मना कर देते हैं मैंने नहीं लिया था, तो लाइबिलिटी आपके ऊपर आ जाएगी।
ओके सर, ओके।
So you can
थैंक
discuss with me in person maybe tomorrow or day after. I have given my number here.
यू। ओके ओके, थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू सर।
Now I think no any query is pending,
Okay, we are done with that. Okay.
and for the limitation of time.
Okay.
Thank you, Ajay ji. It's a very good and useful updation for we professional, because we always confused to take credit on ITC or not. Request our president, Shri Vishnu Tulsian ji, kindly say something and give vote of thanks to our speaker and participant too. Vishnu ji, please. Vishnu ji. Just a minute.
ड्रॉप आउट हो गए।
I think some network problem with him.
कोई बात नहीं, प्रकाश जी आप ही कर दो।
Okay, Rahul ji. Rahul Gupta ji, please.
हाँ हाँ प्रकाश जी।
Our speaker and the participant too. Please.
अच्छा, am I audible properly? I'm actually having some network connection issues.
So we can hear you, Rahul.
Okay. Thank you, Prakash Bhaiya. Thank you, Ajay ji, for the wonderful deliberation. I think from the way the question and answer session has gone about for the last 45 minutes and so many people have asked questions, it is very well understood that your deliberation have been very, very useful and fruitful for everyone who is present. Sir, I would really thank you on behalf of all the attendees and on behalf of VIP Chartered Accountant Association for sparing your time on a Sunday evening and sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you very much, sir. And we look forward to more such deliberations from you in future on our during our association meeting. Thank you, sir. And thank you to all the attendees for participating in the event and making this event a success. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, entire VIP study circle. Thank you, Rahulji, Prakashji, and Vishnu for giving me this wonderful opportunity.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.